Quiet, praying through the noise. We decided to take this time of 21 days of fasting and prayer to really open it up, to really work through this issue of praying. How many know sometimes it's hard to pray when your life is so busy? Anybody? What about reading your Bible, right? That's even harder sometimes, right? It tends to be the thing we don't make time for, or it's kind of like the last thing on our to-do list. Maybe we'll do it before we go to bed. But a lot of times life is like this. It's like a snow globe, right? And you can't really see it. It's the snow, but what is it? What am I looking at? And sometimes we don't see things with clarity. There's so many things moving around that sometimes we got to let it sit. We got to let it rest, and we got to let it settle so that we can see what we need to see. Jesus often did this. Many times in the Gospels we read about Jesus retreating and going to a place where he was in a quiet place to pray, to spend time with God the Father. Think about that for a moment. Jesus, fully God and fully man, praying. And he would go and find places of rest. How many need some rest? Yeah? I mean, let's just go through the normal course of a day, right? You wake up, I know some people wake up like 4:30 in the morning. My wife, for a while, she was waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. She had to be at work at 5 o'clock in the morning. Those were not fun days. I'm glad it's over, But you wake up, right? And for some of us, it may be, you take a shower, you try to eat some breakfast on the go, you get your kids dressed, you maybe take them to school, you're rushing to work, and then when you're at work, you're rushing to get things done, deadlines, to be productive, only to rush home during traffic to maybe get dinner ready and pick up the kids or do whatever you got to do, grocery shopping, laundry, help them with homework, only to hurry up and get to bed so you can do it all over again the next day. It's like a rat race, right? And we make funny movies about it, like a Lego movie, right? And how everybody is just like a production, buying into this stream of what is accepted or what is supposed to be. And a lot of times the reality is this: is that we need to hit that quiet button. Like when you're going on a plane and they tell you to put your phone or your devices in airplane mode. And what I'm doing is I'm shutting out everything else because right now I cannot listen to those things. People who need you or need something from you, right? There's always those people. Deadlines that stress you out. Anybody got deadlines that stress you out? Anybody? Right? Carrying the weight of other people's hardships. How about that? How about that? Somebody else is going through something and they come to you and now you bear that. In fact, I'm going to give you a little secret. I was a teenager when I first was told that I was going to be a pastor. And you know what I said? Nope, not me. I don't want to do that. And you know what my reason was? Because I don't want to take people's junk home with me. I didn't want to bear other people's problems. I got enough of my own, and I was just a teenager. I was not thinking. It's another reason why I didn't want to be a doctor, right? Because I considered that. I was working at a clinic, and I got to work closely with doctors, and I realized, nope, don't want to do that. These people have no life sometimes. They take charts home with them, and they're consumed with other people's issues. so much that they cannot live their own life. And I didn't like it, right? No, not all doctors are like that, but the ones that I was working with, it was a low income clinic meeting the neediest people. So it was always busy and always had issues, and there was always somebody wanting something. But I didn't even want to be a pastor for that reason. It took years for God to change my heart and give me a love for his people. You know, and I say that as a confession, and maybe you're just right there with me, right? Some of us, we like to go check out at work, punch out, go home and do what I want to do. We've all been there, right? You don't want to take your work home with you. So sometimes carrying the weight of other people's hardships. You know, life is chaotic. It's exhausting. I don't know about you, but even nowadays, just driving exhausts me. Like when I got to drive far within a city and just deal with traffic, it drains me. I'm upset. You know, I may act out in different ways. It's exhausting, it's tiring, it's busy, and it's in that storm of chaos. It's in the busyness of life that Jesus is our Prince of Peace. It's in the rush of exhaustion that he is our rest. And it's in the drain of tiredness that he is our strength. And it's in the volume of all the noise, of all the things, the busyness of our life. The busyness of our life. 2019 is here and there's tons of things we want to do. Work is saying this, family is saying this, friends are saying this, and then I got my own personal things that I want to try to achieve. It's chaotic. It's busy. And it's in the volume of all the noise around us that he brings us into the quiet. And so this morning in 2019, we could have started Explore God with the rest of the city and a lot of other churches this week, but we decided to wait because we really want to take time to focus on what would it mean to be quiet, to get to a place of quiet, to pray through the noise. One of the things we're praying for is this Explore God series. This outward evangelistical opportunity for our church to go outside of these walls and to go and talk to people that aren't sitting here sharing our ideas. That won't happen on accident. We need to usher that in with prayer. You know, last week I kind of made fun of the difference between New Year's resolutions and goals, right? New Year's resolutions are things you don't really have any intentions of doing, right? Goals are things you can measure yourself to. And we really want to take a time, so for the next few weeks, a 21-day season of fasting and praying. And this sermon series to help us find space for God in the quiet. 2 months ago, we went through a different series. It was about money. It was about tithing. It was about finances. And because it's the root most times of so many of our worries and our fears and our anxieties. And so today we're talking about quiet for the same reason. Because a lot of our anxiety is permeated because we're so busy and we don't know how to rest. We don't know how to be quiet, and I'm one of those people. I'm an extreme extrovert. So you put me around people, I get energized. Put me in a room alone by myself with a computer, no windows, I'm going to go crazy. I don't like that. I need people around, right? In fact, when I do a sermon series, I can't do it in my really nice office. I have to go somewhere else. I'll go to Starbucks. And just the presence of people around helps me. I don't know what it is. But for me, I don't like to be in solitary. I don't like to be motionless, thoughtless, quiet. That's hard for me. So I'm preaching to myself over these next couple of weeks. Alan Fading reflects on life this way. He says, let me know if this sounds familiar. He says, at times my way of life and leadership has looked like I was trying only to exhale. Outputting, doing, extension of effort, But breathing only works if we inhale as well as exhale. Besides, I don't have anything to exhale if I haven't breathed in first. This idea of quiet, breathing in, instead of just focusing on all these output goals, on these outputs that life demands of us. You know, working in ministry can be really hard, and I remember as a young pastor feeling really overwhelmed. And my senior pastor would come to me and says, Eric, just when it comes to this time, shut it off. Trust me, there's going to be something to do tomorrow. Something is going to happen. Something unexpected, it's going to happen. So do what you can today and then go and make and prioritize. And he taught me how to do a block schedule. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Block schedule? And it was the greatest thing in my life, actually. Because I was one of those guys where if you put it in my plate, I cannot stop until it's done. Right? I have to finish this. And with the block schedule I learned, I'm like, okay, I'm going to designate 1 hour towards this, and wherever I'm at in 1 hour, that's where I'm going to be at until tomorrow when I give another hour. And that meant reading a book, that meant taking a course, that meant meeting with a person. All right? I had a great friend, and he'd love to show up in my office unannounced and steal 2 hours of my day talking about something that could have waited. Right? And I learned to prioritize my schedule. But breathing only works if you inhale as well as exhale. And we need to breathe. We need to breathe in. Over this next series, season, the season of 21 days of fasting and prayer, I want you to be able to breathe in. And what's going to help you is getting rid of the things that distract you. Putting on hold the things that you are feeling pressured to do. I'm not saying quit your jobs, okay? Disclaimer there. But I am saying that maybe you need to slow down. Maybe you need to fast from media. Maybe the TV needs to go off. Maybe the phones need to be put away. Maybe the tablets and the laptops need to be stored away for a season so that you can find something else to do with your time. Something more productive. Maybe those projects that you have lined up that you've basically created your schedule for the next 3 months. Maybe you need to put one of those projects on hold so that you can do this. And spend intentional time seeking God. Today we're in the book of Mark. So if you have a Bible, it's in the New Testament. It's the second book in the New Testament. We're going to be in chapter 6. In Mark chapter 6, verse 30, some incredible things. A series of events happens. If I could just name a few as you're turning to your spot here. Jesus sends the disciples to go out into the town preaching, driving out demons and healing the sick. This is pretty extraordinary. It's kind of like what we're doing with the Explore God and sending twos, right? Here, you're going to be in this discussion group. You're going to be in this discussion group. Well, imagine if at that discussion group, you're like healing people and casting out demons. Right? That's freaky. That's crazy. Right? We don't look at it that way, but this is what's happening. Jesus sends the disciples out to go into the town preaching, and they start healing people and driving out demons, and then they come back pumped up, man. I mean, I'd be pumped up, if that happened to me, right? He comes up pumped up and on fire about what just happened, and then they just find out that John the Baptist, who was in prison, had been executed. And so there they are. Excited but exhausted from experiencing what God did in incredible ways. Exhausted from the trip that they had just taken to get back to Jesus, to tell him all this stuff, and then to find out this bad news that their dear friend was executed. And not to mention that where Mark lands us, that everyone, there's a whole bunch of people around them. Like a bunch of people, and every single one of those people will want something from Jesus. So are you getting this picture? Are you getting this picture of busyness, right? Some great things, some low things, some exhausting things, some regular, just everyday life things, and all mixed in at one place with one group of people. I don't know about you, but sometimes that feels like my life. So we pick up in Mark chapter 6, verse 30. The apostles returned to Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. And he said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in a boat to a desolate place by themselves. See, when we're tired and exhausted and drained and hard-pressed from the busyness of life, that is exactly when Jesus is inviting us to go away with him to a quiet place, a place of rest. You know, some of us have come we're excited. 2018 was a great year. We're excited for 2019. We're coming into this new year and we're on 10, man. It's great. God bless you. Some of us, that's not the case. 2018 was a rough year. So glad it's over. Looking to 2019 to be a different year. And while others are mourning a loss, maybe 2018 wasn't a great year. I want you to hear this morning Jesus' loving invitation to be with him, to find rest, rest for your soul. But if we're going to do that, we're going to have to make quiet places when life is in busy spaces. If you're taking notes this morning, that's the big idea for today. We need to make room for quiet places when life is in busy spaces. And even though we're starting 2019 off right and we're excited about it, we're taking this first of the year to stop, to slow down, to make a quiet place to say, God, speak to me. God, give me clarity on this. Lord, I want to spend time with you. That's important. And if we're going to do that, when you're making room for quiet places and busy spaces, busyness is an indication for a needed quiet place. Busyness. If you're busy, do you know what I'm talking about when I say busy? Like, for instance, there's been times where somebody says, hey, can you do it? Nope, can't do it. I haven't even listened to what they asked me. I don't care. I can't do it. I am completely overwhelmed right now. I have so many things on my plate. It doesn't matter. I can't do anymore. Right? I have my children that need me, my wife that needs me, and I feel like I'm forsaking them. I am not going to give you any more time and take it from them. They will kill me. You ever been there? You ever done that? I mean, because we're always busy, right? I mean, we busy ourselves with things. We busy our kids with sports programs. We busy ourselves with work and tasks. We've been taught that busyness is a way of life. Staying productive, always on the go. And we're passing that toxic life on to our children. So today, more than ever, we need to listen. We need to listen to the words of Jesus. We need to listen to the words of Jesus when he says, come away with me. Come away with me to a place so we can rest. He said to them, come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while, for there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. They couldn't even eat. There were so many people. You ever felt like that? Moms, right? For a while, man, my wife couldn't even use the bathroom without one of my boys chasing her, right? That was the only place she could get away from them. Sometimes that didn't work. Danny is like the persistent knocker. He just will not stop. I know you're in there. You know you love me, right? And we do. See, it's when we feel overwhelmed or when we feel the overwhelming chaos of our emotional, mental load that we're carrying, the work productivity that we're striving for, the relational expectations that we feel we have to live up to, when the weight of busyness comes. It's an indicator that we need to follow Jesus to a place, a quiet place for rest. Sometimes you can look at someone's life and you can tell, whoa, man, this guy is like going 100 miles an hour and he's not resting. I love Pastor Scott dearly, and he knows that he should not ask me, how's your marriage going? Right? Because what am I going to say? It's going great. So he doesn't even ask me. He goes right to Connie. He goes, is he taking rest? Is he taking time off? Is he spending time with the family? All right, and he would ask these questions to Connie. Of course, she's not gonna lie. So she'll tell the truth. Nope. Nope, we haven't seen him for days. I'm married? What? No, I'm playing. But sometimes it felt like that, especially around Easter and Christmas, when we're working so hard and trying to decorate buildings or get programs ready or special events. And man, I love that stuff, so I could just throw myself into those things. You know, when you love your job, it doesn't even seem like work. But it was so easy for me to choose this thing and sacrifice my wife and my kids. Without asking for permission, without asking them to understand. We've all been there. We've all been there. But it's when we feel these things, it's an indicator that we need to follow Jesus into that quiet place, that quiet space. See, because if we make room for quiet places and busy spaces, then what's going to happen is that following Jesus will always lead us into quiet places. In Mark 6:31, I keep reading this, and he said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while." Come away. Push away these things. Get whatever's entangling you. You know, like my son, Danny, who sometimes just wants my attention. And you feel like, I need to breathe. Come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. This wasn't unique for Jesus. It seems that it was actually a natural rhythm of his life. And if we're aiming to be like Jesus, then we should really pay attention to what he did. 12 clear times in the book of Mark, Jesus withdraws from the crowds to quiet places, often to pray, always to rest, sometimes alone, and others with a few disciples. I think about that. 12 clear times just in the book of Mark. See, if we're in fact following Jesus, when I talk about that, you know, and I made mention of this, you know, in when the disciples were there, following Jesus literally meant following him. Wherever he went, that's where they would go. Today, we follow Jesus by obeying his commands. The Great Commission is to make, baptize, teach, and teach disciples. Teach them to obey everything that Jesus commanded. That's what we do. So how do I follow Jesus? Is because I open up his word and I apply it to my life and I say, okay, this is how I do this. This is how I'm to be married. This is what marriage is about. This is what raising kids is about. This is what integrity means. This is how I'm supposed to live. And in doing so, in obeying Jesus' words or the words of Scripture that come from God, I am following him. And if we're going to follow Jesus, we will always end up in quiet places of renewal, of revival, of revelation. Do you ever have an epiphany before? Something like a light bulb moment? Light bulb. Where you realize something? See, those moments, those come from rest. Rest in God. When he says, come away with me, come away into a desolate place by yourself and rest a while. I like this. Pastor Don says it this way. He goes, prayer is someone we are with more than it is something we do. Prayer is someone we are with more than it is with something we do. See, Jesus will lead you into opportunities to learn and to grow, or places to grow, people to love, and plenty of moments to develop your character. And in the midst of those moments, if you are following him closely, you will follow him away from the crowds. You will follow him away from the busyness of your life, the things that you put on your plate that consume your time and your thoughts. Have you ever laid at night thinking about something for tomorrow, where it just consumes your thoughts? It stops you from sleep because you're anxious, or you're consumed with fear or worry. I love Matthew 11:28 and 30. It says, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Come to me, all you who are heavy laden and labor, and I will give you rest. Come away with me. Come away with me by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. Over and over, we're hearing Jesus say this. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Rest. If we're going to make room for quiet places in busy spaces, then quiet places with God result in rest for our soul. Ever got like an awesome night of sleep, right? My sister and my brother-in-law, they had just moved into their new house and everything was cool, and they bought this really cool new bed, and they were explaining how awesome their sleep was because of this new bed, right? And I was super jealous, and I just laid on it. I was just laying on the bed like I want some of that, right? But it's awesome, man, when you get some rest. Earlier this week, my wife came home from work, and she came home around, I don't know, it was like 10:30 a.m., and she was tired. And so, I'm like yelling at the boys. I'm like, be quiet, put headphones in. They want to play video games. I'm like, then you got to wear headphones, or you got to get out the house. Get out. Mom's going to sleep. We're not going to bother her, right? And she got a really long nap. It was great. And she woke up, and it was getting dark outside. And so when she woke up, she thought it was the next morning and she was late for work. All right? Because when she wakes up, it's still dark outside. But she had gotten so much sleep. It was so restful. She was so happy. And she kind of walked into the living room like where we were at, like, I don't know how I should feel right now. Man, I don't know about you, but I desire that type of rest. Well, what about for your soul? Rest for your soul. Do you even know what that feels like? Do you know what it's like to be in a place of complete peace and solace? I wonder about that. Quiet places with God result in rest for our soul. We all need that soul healing, the Sabbath rest. And here is the God of the universe inviting us into his presence away from everything else to get some rest. Psalm 131 verses 2 and 3. Let me read this to you. It says, but I have calmed the quiet and quieted my soul. I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, hope in the Lord from this time forth and forevermore. In a world that is so loud and fast, we need a composed and quieted soul to slow down and hear the still voice of God speaking into our lives. And of all the images to use for my prayer life, I would never have used a baby weaning from a mother. But have you ever seen a baby who's hungry? A baby who wants something and he just starts screaming, he or she, and hysterically, and nothing soothes them. You can't calm them. They are just set. They don't know how to fix it. They can't get it for themselves. And then the presence of their mother comes. And like that, the baby stops crying. Because it's getting what it needs, what it's longing for. That picture of a baby, quiet and peaceful. Right? And we laugh. He's like, I love my child when he's sleeping. Right? But that's what it's like when we go and we find these quiet places, when we make these quiet places, the result will be rest for our soul. And I love this. I think the biggest pull from all of this is, if we're going to make the most of this season of prayer and fasting, then we can't just live life like normal. In fact, the mere taking food out of my life is a big change, right? It's going to hurt. It's going to cost me something. And it should. And we need to make these quiet places when our life is in busy spaces. Because that's where we get rest. So maybe this morning, I'll invite the worship team to come back up. Maybe this morning, as I'm talking about rest, as we start this fast and this season of prayer, of intentionality, maybe this morning you are overwhelmed. Maybe when I talk about rest and peace, that is not something that you experience. In fact, your life is filled with anxiety and worry and fear and stress. And what would it look like this morning if you were to bring that to God? What would it look like this morning if you would say, God, I desire to have the rest that comes from you? That you would bring rest to my soul. To my soul, to the deepest part of me, that I can sit, even when all these things are still going around. The voices are loud. The deadlines are still there. They're not going anywhere. The work still has to be done. But yet I can stand in this quiet place with you, Lord, and get rest. That's the simple message this morning. We need to make quiet places. We need to make quiet places when our life is in busy spaces. Because there will always be something to do. There will always be someone to help. Right? The to-do list never ends. But nobody can make your soul rest except you coming to God and spending that time with Him. So I want to invite us to stand. And maybe this morning, maybe that's you. Maybe you're running from God. Maybe you're running from spending time with God. And you're consuming your life with busyness and things to do. I want to open up this altar. It's not the most comfortable place, but it is a place that is designated for you to show an act of surrender. And why would I ask you to come and put your knees on a hard floor, on a wooden stage? Except if it wasn't to show your heart to God, Lord, I need you. And this rest that you give, I haven't experienced it, and I want to. And God, more than I want anything else, I want to know that you are with me, that you care for me, and that you can provide for me something I cannot provide for myself. So if that's you, as we sing this song, I want to invite you. I love the chorus of this song. It says, our hearts are restless until they find rest in you. Our hearts are restless until they find rest in you. So I'm going to invite if any of the elders are here, if you want to maybe just come to the front to be able to pray with people. And if you need prayer, if you need to come into this time of rest, and maybe this is speaking to you this morning, the Spirit of God is speaking to you this morning. As we asked him to in the beginning of this service, right? Spirit of God, speak to me. I'm hanging on every word. So if that's you, I want to invite you to come and pray this morning.